Tonight, we're traveling back nearly 2,000 years into the fascinating world of ancient Rome. So, before we begin, find a comfortable position, relax, and let the worries of the modern world slowly drift away. Because tonight, we're going to explore some of the craziest ancient Rome discoveries ever made. Discoveries that completely changed what historians thought they knew about one of the greatest civilizations in human history. And the most surprising part? Many of these discoveries weren't found by famous historians or expert archaeologists. Some were discovered by accident. A farmer plowing a field, a construction crew digging foundations, a diver exploring a shipwreck. And what they uncovered forced historians to rewrite entire chapters of Roman history. We'll discover a city frozen in time by a volcanic eruption, an ancient machine so advanced that it seemed impossible for its age, lost letters written by ordinary Romans, hidden villas, forgotten inventions, mysterious shipwrecks, and much more. So dim the lights, settle in, and let's begin our journey into the ancient world. Chapter 1. The empire that still refuses to give up its secrets. What if I told you that some of the greatest discoveries from ancient Rome were found completely by accident? Not by famous historians, not by brilliant scholars, but by farmers plowing fields, workers digging foundations, and divers exploring the depths of the sea. For centuries, historians believed they understood the Roman Empire. They studied ancient books, translated inscriptions, and examined the ruins that survived the passage of time. Piece by piece, they reconstructed what they thought was a complete picture of Roman life. But then something unexpected happened. The ground began giving up its secrets. Beneath quiet villages, hidden under modern cities, buried beneath volcanic ash, and resting on the floor of the Mediterranean Sea, archaeologists discovered evidence that challenged everything experts thought they knew. Entire cities appeared where none were expected. Ancient machines seemed centuries ahead of their time. Lost letters allowed ordinary Romans to speak directly to the modern world. Again and again, discoveries forced historians to rewrite the story of ancient Rome. And tonight, as we slowly journey into the fascinating world of the ancient past, we'll explore some of the craziest Roman discoveries ever made. Discoveries that proved historians wrong and revealed a civilization even more remarkable than anyone had imagined. So settle in, relax, and let us travel back nearly 2,000 years. Imagine standing on a Roman road at sunset. The stone beneath your feet is smooth from centuries of use. Merchants are closing their shops for the evening. The smell of fresh bread drifts from a nearby bakery. Soldiers return from patrol while children run through the crowded streets. At first glance, the Roman Empire might seem familiar. It had cities, roads, businesses, governments, entertainment, and international trade. In many ways, Rome helped shape the modern world. At its height, the empire stretched across 3 continents. Its territory included vast regions of Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Millions of people lived under Roman rule, speaking different languages, following different traditions, and worshiping different gods. For generations, historians relied primarily on ancient writers to understand this enormous civilization. Writers such as senators, generals, and wealthy citizens left behind books describing politics, wars, and famous leaders. These texts became the foundation of Roman history. But there was a problem. Most of these authors belonged to the upper classes. They wrote about emperors. They wrote about military campaigns. They wrote about powerful families. They rarely wrote about ordinary people. As a result, historians often saw Rome through the eyes of the wealthy elite. For centuries, that was the best information available. Then archaeology changed everything. Beginning in the 18th and 19th centuries, researchers started uncovering remarkable evidence buried beneath the earth. Every excavation seemed to reveal another surprise. Ancient homes preserved details of everyday life. Lost tools demonstrated unexpected technological skill. Human remains revealed health conditions, diets, and lifestyles that written records had never mentioned. The deeper archaeologists dug, the more complicated Rome became. Instead of confirming old assumptions, many discoveries challenged them. Historians realized that Roman society was far more diverse, innovative, and complex than previously believed. Some discoveries showed that Roman engineers possessed astonishing technical knowledge. Others revealed that ordinary citizens enjoyed comforts historians thought impossible for the ancient world. Perhaps most surprising of all was the realization that many Roman secrets remain hidden even today. Modern cities often sit directly above ancient settlements. Roads, buildings, and neighborhoods cover countless archaeological sites. In some places, entire Roman districts remain buried beneath modern streets. The past is literally beneath our feet, and every year, new discoveries continue to emerge. A forgotten villa, a lost shipwreck, a mysterious artifact. Each one adds another piece to the puzzle, because despite centuries of research, ancient Rome still refuses to give up all its secrets. And as we are about to discover, some of the most astonishing revelations were hidden in places nobody expected. Chapter 2, The City That Time Forgot, Pompeii's Incredible Secret. Imagine waking up one ordinary morning, completely unaware that your city is about to become one of the most important archaeological discoveries in human history. The streets are busy. Merchants are opening their shops. Children are playing outside. Workers are preparing for another normal day. Then, without warning, a nearby mountain explodes. Within hours, an entire city vanishes from the world. And for nearly 1,700 years, nobody knows where it is. When historians first began studying ancient Rome, they relied mostly on written records. They knew about emperors, wars, and political scandals. But they knew surprisingly little about how ordinary Romans actually lived. That would change forever because of a city called Pompeii. In the year AD 79, the people of Pompeii lived in the shadow of Mount Vesuvius. The volcano stood quietly above the Bay of Naples. Most residents paid little attention to it. In fact, many people did not even realize it was a volcano. Generations had lived there without witnessing a major eruption. Life seemed peaceful. Pompeii was a prosperous Roman city filled with elegant homes, busy marketplaces, public baths, taverns, bakeries, and temples. Its streets echoed with conversations, business deals, and the sounds of daily life. Then, everything changed. On a summer day in AD 79, Mount Vesuvius erupted with incredible force. A massive column of ash and volcanic debris shot high into the sky. At first, many residents watched in confusion. Soon, however, ash began falling like snow. The situation quickly became terrifying. Buildings collapsed under the growing weight of volcanic material. Darkness covered the city. Hot clouds of gas and ash raced across the landscape. Thousands of people attempted to escape. Many never made it. Within a short period of time, Pompeii disappeared beneath layers of volcanic ash. The city was effectively erased from the map. Over the centuries, people forgot exactly where it had been. Fields and vineyards eventually covered the buried ruins. For generations, the lost city remained hidden underground. Then, in the 18th century, workers digging in the area made a remarkable discovery. Beneath the soil lay an entire Roman city. At first, nobody realized how important the find would become. But as excavations continued, archaeologists began uncovering streets, homes, shops, temples, and public buildings preserved in extraordinary detail. It was unlike anything historians had ever seen. Most ancient cities had been rebuilt, destroyed, or altered over time. Pompeii was different. Because it had been buried so suddenly, countless details of daily life survived. Archaeologists found food still sitting in containers. They discovered furniture, tools, artwork, and personal belongings. Graffiti remained visible on walls. Political advertisements still decorated buildings. Even the layout of businesses could be studied. For the first time, historians could examine an ordinary Roman city almost exactly as it had existed nearly 2,000 years earlier. And what they learned surprised them. For years, many scholars had viewed Roman society primarily through the writings of wealthy elites. Pompeii revealed a much more vibrant world. The city was full of restaurants, bars, bakeries, workshops, and entertainment venues. Ordinary people lived busy, complex lives. Many homes were decorated with colorful paintings and elaborate mosaics. Even some modest residences contained artistic details historians had not expected. The discovery also revealed something remarkably familiar. Romans complained. They advertised. They supported political candidates. They left messages for friends. They joked. They argued. In many ways, they behaved just like people today. One of the most famous discoveries involved plaster casts of victims. As bodies decomposed beneath the hardened ash, empty spaces remained. Archaeologists carefully filled these spaces with plaster, creating haunting casts that captured the final moments of Pompeii's residents. For the first time, people could see the human tragedy behind the disaster. These casts transformed the ancient world from an abstract idea into a deeply personal story. Pompeii did more than preserve a city. It preserved a moment, a snapshot of Roman life frozen in time. And because of that extraordinary preservation, historians were forced to rethink countless assumptions about the Roman world. What began as a terrible catastrophe became one of the greatest archaeological discoveries ever made. Yet as remarkable as Pompeii was, another discovery would soon challenge what historians believed about Roman technology itself. Because hidden within ancient ruins was evidence that Roman engineers possessed a secret so impressive that modern scientists are still trying to understand it today. And that brings us to the mystery of Roman concrete. Chapter 3. The Roman concrete mystery. The ancient material that refused to break. What if I told you that some Roman buildings have survived for nearly 2,000 years, while many modern structures begin showing serious damage after only a few decades? It sounds impossible. After all, technology is supposed to improve over time. We often assume that modern engineers know far more than builders from the ancient world. And in many ways, that's true. But when scientists began studying certain Roman structures, they discovered something unexpected. Ancient Roman concrete seemed almost indestructible. Even more surprising, some evidence suggested that this concrete could actually become stronger with age. The discovery left researchers asking a fascinating question. Did the Romans know something that modern engineers had forgotten? Imagine standing on the coast of Italy nearly 2,000 years ago. A team of Roman workers is constructing a harbor. Massive stone blocks are being positioned along the shoreline. Workers carry baskets filled with strange volcanic material. Architects carefully supervise every stage of construction. The goal is simple: build a structure capable of resisting the constant assault of waves, storms, and salt water. Most people would expect such a structure to gradually weaken over time. Saltwater is notoriously destructive. Modern concrete often cracks and deteriorates after years of exposure. Yet many Roman harbors still exist today. Some remain standing after nearly 20 centuries. When historians first noticed this, they were impressed. When scientists investigated further, they became amazed. Researchers collected samples of Roman concrete and analyzed them using modern technology. What they discovered challenged long-held assumptions about ancient engineering. Roman builders used a mixture that included volcanic ash, lime, and various types of rock. At first glance, the ingredients seemed relatively simple. The magic, however, was in the chemistry. When seawater interacted with the concrete, chemical reactions occurred within the material. Instead of weakening the structure, these reactions helped strengthen it. Tiny mineral crystals formed over time. These crystals reinforced the concrete from within. In some cases, the material became more durable as the centuries passed. The findings stunned researchers. For generations, historians had viewed Roman concrete as an impressive but primitive building material. Now it appeared that Roman engineers had accidentally, or perhaps intentionally, created something extraordinary. The more scientists studied Roman structures, the more examples they found. Harbors survived. Sea walls endured. Aqueducts remained standing. Domes and temples continued to defy gravity. One of the most famous examples is the Pantheon. Built nearly 2,000 years ago, its enormous concrete dome remains the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the world. Even today, engineers admire its design. The fact that such a structure has survived earthquakes, weather, and the passage of time is a testament to Roman skill. The discovery forced historians to reconsider how advanced Roman engineering really was. For years, many scholars assumed technological progress moved in a straight line. Ancient civilizations developed basic techniques. Later societies improved upon them. Eventually, modern technology emerged. The reality turned out to be far more complicated. Sometimes knowledge is lost. Sometimes effective techniques disappear. And sometimes ancient builders discover solutions that later generations forget. After the decline of the Roman Empire, many construction methods gradually faded from use. Centuries passed before builders achieved similar levels of engineering sophistication in certain areas. The Roman concrete mystery became a powerful reminder that history is not always a story of constant advancement. There are moments when ancient people solve problems in ways that still impress experts today. Scientists continue studying Roman concrete in hopes of developing more durable and environmentally friendly building materials. In a strange twist, one of the oldest technologies in history may help shape the future. And yet, as remarkable as Roman concrete was, another discovery would prove even more shocking. Because hidden beneath the waters of the Mediterranean Sea was an object so advanced that historians initially refused to believe it could be ancient. A machine filled with gears, a device capable of tracking the heavens, a discovery that would become known as the world's first computer. Chapter 4. The ancient computer that shouldn't have existed. Imagine you're diving into the deep blue waters of the Mediterranean Sea. Sunlight barely reaches the ocean floor. Around you lie the remains of an ancient shipwreck that sank more than 2,000 years ago. Broken statues, fragments of pottery, pieces of long-forgotten treasure. Nothing seems unusual. Then someone notices a strange lump of greenish bronze. It looks like little more than a corroded rock. No gold, no jewels, no obvious value. But hidden inside that corroded lump was a machine so advanced that, when historians finally understood what it was, many could hardly believe it. Some even thought a mistake had been made, because according to everything historians believed at the time, a machine like this simply should not have existed in the ancient world. And yet it did. The story begins in 1901 near the small Greek island of Antikythera. A group of sponge divers searching the seafloor discovered the remains of an ancient Roman-era shipwreck. The ship had likely sunk sometime around the 1st century BC while transporting valuable cargo across the Mediterranean. Divers recovered statues, glassware, coins, jewelry, and countless artifacts. Among them was a heavily corroded bronze object that appeared unremarkable. For years, it sat largely ignored. Then researchers noticed something strange. Embedded within the corrosion were tiny gear wheels. Not one or two gears. Dozens of them. Ancient gears. This immediately raised questions. Complex gear systems were not supposed to exist during this period. Historians knew that ancient engineers had created impressive machines, but nothing on this level had ever been discovered. As decades passed, technology improved. Scientists used X-rays and advanced imaging techniques to examine the object without damaging it. What they found was astonishing. Inside the bronze fragments was an intricate mechanism containing more than 30 interlocking gears. Each gear had been carefully designed and manufactured with remarkable precision. The device became known as the Antikythera Mechanism, and it completely transformed historians' understanding of ancient technology. Researchers eventually determined that the machine was capable of tracking astronomical movements. By turning a handle, users could predict the positions of the sun and moon. It could calculate eclipses. It could track lunar cycles. Some studies suggested it may even have followed the movements of certain planets. In essence, it functioned as a highly sophisticated analog computer. The word computer usually brings modern technology to mind, but this machine performed calculations through mechanical movement rather than electronics. What shocked historians was not merely that it existed, it was how advanced it was. Nothing comparable appeared again for many centuries. In fact, machines of similar complexity would not become common until the development of medieval astronomical clocks more than 1,000 years later. This raised an obvious question. How could ancient engineers create something so sophisticated? The answer remains partly mysterious. The ancient Mediterranean world possessed brilliant mathematicians, astronomers, and engineers. Figures such as Archimedes had already demonstrated extraordinary technical knowledge. Some scholars believe the Antikythera mechanism may have emerged from a tradition of scientific instrument making that has largely been lost to history. If that is true, the device may not have been unique. There could have been others, perhaps many others. Unfortunately, bronze was valuable. Throughout history, countless metal objects were melted down and reused. Entire collections of ancient technology may have disappeared forever. The Antikythera mechanism survived only because it spent centuries hidden beneath the sea. Its discovery forced historians to reconsider what ancient civilizations were capable of achieving. Too often, people imagine the ancient world as technologically primitive. The mechanism challenged that assumption. It revealed a level of engineering skill that few experts had expected. More importantly, it reminded us of something fascinating. History is not just a record of what survived. It is also a record of what was lost. For every object we discover, there may be thousands that vanished forever. And somewhere beneath the earth or beneath the sea, other forgotten inventions may still be waiting. Machines, tools, devices. Technologies that could once again force historians to rewrite the story of the ancient world. And as surprising as this ancient computer was, the next discovery would reveal something even more personal. Because instead of uncovering machines, archaeologists would uncover people themselves, silent witnesses who had been buried for nearly 2,000 years. And through their bones, they would tell historians a completely different story about life in ancient Rome. Chapter 5. The skeletons that told a different story. Imagine discovering a group of Romans who had been silent for nearly 2,000 years. No letters, no diaries, no recorded conversations, no stories written in books. And yet, somehow, they still had a great deal to say, not through words, but through their bones. For centuries, historians learned about ancient Rome mainly through the writings of wealthy men, senators, politicians, generals, and emperors. These writers described victories, laws, public speeches, and political struggles. But there was a problem. Most ordinary Romans never wrote history. The farmer working in a distant province, the laborer carrying stone blocks through a crowded city, the child growing up on the frontier, the woman running a household while her husband served in the army. Their voices rarely appeared in the historical record. For a long time, historians could only guess what their lives were really like. Then archaeology gave those forgotten Romans a chance to speak. Imagine a team of archaeologists carefully excavating an ancient cemetery. Layer by layer, they remove centuries of soil. Eventually, human remains begin to emerge. At first glance, a skeleton might seem simple. But to modern scientists, every bone contains clues. Age, diet, health, injuries, occupation, even where a person spent parts of their life. Over the last several decades, researchers have studied thousands of Roman skeletons discovered throughout Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. The results have transformed our understanding of Roman society. Many historians once imagined Rome as a world sharply divided between wealthy elites and desperately poor citizens. The reality turned out to be far more complicated. Some skeletons revealed signs of surprisingly good health. Others showed evidence of hardship and exhausting physical labor. The differences varied greatly depending on region, occupation, and social status. One of the first surprises involved diet. Ancient writers often described grand banquets filled with exotic foods. These descriptions created the impression that Roman cuisine was luxurious and abundant. But skeletal analysis told a more nuanced story. Most ordinary Romans relied heavily on grains, vegetables, beans, and locally available foods. Meat was often less common than many historians had assumed. Scientists could even detect dietary patterns through chemical traces preserved within bones and teeth. In some regions, people consumed large amounts of seafood. In others, grain-based diets dominated everyday life. Another discovery involved childhood health. Many Roman children experienced periods of malnutrition or illness. Researchers found evidence of stress on growing bones, revealing difficult conditions during certain stages of life. Yet many individuals recovered and lived into adulthood. The findings highlighted both the challenges and resilience of Roman communities. Perhaps even more fascinating were the injuries. Some skeletons displayed signs of healed fractures, broken arms, broken legs, damaged ribs. The remarkable part was that many injuries had healed successfully. This suggested that people often received care and support after accidents. In several cases, individuals survived serious injuries for many years. These discoveries challenged assumptions that ancient medicine was entirely ineffective. The skeletons also revealed the physical demands of daily life. Many laborers developed joint damage from years of repetitive work. Farmers, builders, and craftsmen placed enormous strain on their bodies. Life in the Roman world could be physically exhausting. Yet it was not simply a story of suffering. Some remains indicated long lives and relatively good health. Others showed evidence of active lifestyles that kept people strong well into adulthood. Then came one of the biggest surprises of all. Modern scientific techniques allowed researchers to study where individuals had spent their childhoods. By examining chemical signatures preserved in teeth, scientists discovered that many Romans had moved significant distances during their lives. Some individuals buried in Britain had spent their childhoods elsewhere in the empire. Others living in Italy appeared to have originated in distant provinces. The Roman world was far more mobile than historians once believed. People traveled. They migrated. They served in the military. They traded goods. They built new lives far from where they were born. The empire was not a collection of isolated communities. It was an interconnected world linked by roads, ships, commerce, and opportunity. Perhaps the most important lesson from these discoveries is that history is not only about famous leaders. It is also about ordinary people, the people who built roads, worked farms, raised families, operated shops, and lived their lives far from the halls of power. For centuries, those individuals remained largely invisible. But through archaeology, they finally gained a voice. And what they revealed forced historians to rethink countless assumptions about Roman life. Yet another discovery was waiting beneath the streets of ancient cities, a discovery that would prove Romans enjoyed something surprisingly modern, something fast, convenient, and familiar to almost everyone today. Because long before hamburgers and takeout meals, ancient Rome had already invented its own version of fast food. Chapter 6. Ancient Rome's Fast Food Empire. What if I told you that nearly 2,000 years before modern fast food restaurants existed, Romans were already grabbing quick meals on the way to work? No drive-through windows, no delivery apps, no paper bags. But surprisingly, the idea was almost the same. A busy worker rushing through the city, a traveler looking for a quick meal, a customer stopping by a food counter before heading home. For generations, historians imagined Roman families gathering around home-cooked meals every evening. It seemed like a reasonable assumption. After all, that's how many ancient societies functioned. Then archaeologists started uncovering something unexpected. Scattered throughout Roman cities were hundreds of establishments that looked remarkably familiar. In many ways, they resembled modern fast food restaurants. And their discovery completely changed what historians thought they knew about daily life in ancient Rome. Imagine walking through the streets of Pompeii shortly before the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. The city is alive with activity. Merchants call out to customers. Animals pull carts across stone roads. Workers hurry toward their jobs. The smell of cooking food drifts through the air. As you turn a corner, you notice a small shop. Built into its front counter are several large ceramic containers. Steam rises from one of them. Inside are prepared foods ready to be served immediately. No waiting, no cooking required. Just quick, convenient meals. This was known as a thermopolium, and it was one of the most common food businesses in many Roman cities. For years, historians underestimated how important these establishments were. Then archaeological excavations revealed just how widespread they had become. Researchers discovered dozens of thermopolia in Pompeii alone. Similar businesses appeared throughout the Roman world. The more archaeologists uncovered, the clearer the picture became. Many Romans ate outside the home far more often than historians had assumed. The reason was surprisingly practical. A large portion of urban Romans lived in apartment buildings known as insulae. These buildings housed thousands of people. While some wealthier apartments included cooking facilities, many smaller living spaces lacked proper kitchens. Cooking indoors could also be dangerous. Open flames created fire risks in crowded urban neighborhoods. As a result, buying prepared food was often easier than cooking it yourself. Suddenly, Roman cities began to look much more familiar. Instead of everyone preparing meals at home, countless citizens relied on food vendors and quick service establishments. In many ways, ancient Rome had developed its own fast food culture. Archaeologists learned even more by examining food remains discovered at these sites. Inside storage containers, researchers found traces of fish, vegetables, grains, beans, olives, and various meats. Some establishments served wine alongside meals. Others specialized in particular foods. The variety was greater than many historians expected. One especially well-preserved thermopolium discovered in Pompeii featured colorful paintings decorating the counter. The artwork depicted animals and food items, possibly advertising what was available for purchase. In a sense, it functioned much like a modern menu board. The discovery delighted archaeologists. It offered a vivid glimpse into everyday commercial life. But perhaps the most important lesson involved social interaction. These establishments were more than places to eat. They were gathering spots. People met friends, shared news, discussed politics, exchanged gossip, and relaxed after long days of work. The Roman city was not merely a collection of buildings. It was a living, breathing community. Fast food establishments helped bring that community together. Historians who once focused primarily on emperors and military campaigns suddenly found themselves studying menus, dining habits, and customer behavior. The discoveries reminded everyone that history is not only shaped by rulers, it is also shaped by ordinary people making everyday decisions: what to eat, where to meet, how to spend their evenings. And those ordinary choices revealed a side of Roman life that felt surprisingly modern. In fact, many visitors walking through Pompeii today are shocked by how recognizable these ancient businesses appear. The counters, the food containers, the street-side service, the bustling atmosphere. It all feels strangely familiar. Yet even as archaeologists uncovered these fascinating details, another mystery remained hidden beneath the modern world. Because in some places, entire Roman neighborhoods had not been destroyed at all. They had simply been buried, waiting silently beneath modern cities for nearly 2,000 years. And the discovery of those underground worlds would reveal that ancient Rome was far larger than historians had ever imagined. Chapter 7: The Underground Roman Cities Hidden Beneath Modern Streets. Imagine walking through a busy modern city. Cars pass by, people hurry to work, shops open their doors for the day. Everything seems completely ordinary. But what if, just a few meters beneath your feet, there was another city? A forgotten city. A city filled with streets, homes, temples, shops, and monuments that have been hidden for nearly 2,000 years. Not destroyed, not lost forever, simply buried. For centuries, historians believed they had already discovered most of the important remains of ancient Rome. Then construction crews, subway projects, and archaeological excavations began uncovering something astonishing. In many places, entire sections of the Roman world were still waiting underground, and every new discovery seemed to reveal another hidden chapter of history. Imagine standing in the city of Rome itself. Today, millions of people live there. Tourists visit famous landmarks every year. Ancient monuments rise above modern streets. Yet what most people don't realize is that modern Rome is built on top of ancient Rome. Literally. Over the centuries, buildings collapsed. Earthquakes occurred. Floods deposited layers of mud and debris. New structures were built over older ones. Generation after generation continued building upward. As a result, large portions of the ancient city gradually disappeared beneath layers of history. In some places, Roman streets now lie several meters below the modern surface. For hundreds of years, people walked directly above them without knowing what was hidden underneath. Then archaeologists started digging. What they found was extraordinary. Ancient roads emerged from the soil. Stone pavements still showed grooves left behind by wagon wheels. Homes appeared with walls remarkably well preserved. Workshops, storage rooms, and public buildings began to reappear after centuries of darkness. It was as though entire neighborhoods had been frozen beneath the city. One discovery led to another, and each discovery raised new questions. How much of ancient Rome still remained underground? The answer surprised historians, far more than anyone had expected. In fact, archaeologists estimate that a significant portion of the ancient city has never been fully excavated. Modern buildings make large-scale excavation difficult. In many cases, important archaeological sites remain inaccessible beneath homes, offices, roads, and public infrastructure. The ancient city is still there, hidden, waiting. Sometimes discoveries happen completely by accident. Construction workers digging foundations for new buildings occasionally uncover Roman walls. Utility projects reveal forgotten structures. Subway expansions expose ancient streets. Each excavation becomes a race against time as archaeologists work to document what has been found. The phenomenon is not limited to Rome. Throughout the former empire, Roman cities remain buried beneath modern settlements. In places like London, Paris, Cologne, and countless other cities, traces of Roman civilization lie hidden below modern neighborhoods. Every generation uncovers something new: a temple, a marketplace, a military barracks, a bathhouse. The discoveries continue to reshape historians' understanding of urban life in the Roman world. One particularly fascinating aspect involves preservation. When structures remain buried, they are often protected from weather and human activity. As a result, some underground sites survive in better condition than ruins exposed to the open air. Painted walls, floor mosaics, drainage systems, architectural details, all preserved beneath layers of soil. It is almost like opening a time capsule. The deeper archaeologists dig, the more they realize how much remains undiscovered. Ancient Rome was not a static city. It evolved continuously over centuries, Buildings were renovated, neighborhoods changed, entire districts were rebuilt. The underground remains provide evidence of these transformations. They reveal a living city constantly adapting to new challenges and opportunities. Perhaps the most exciting part is that the story is far from over. Unlike many historical mysteries that have already been solved, underground Roman archaeology continues to produce surprises every year. Future discoveries could completely change current theories. Hidden monuments may still exist beneath modern streets. Forgotten treasures could be waiting beneath office buildings. Entire sections of the ancient city may remain untouched. The Roman world is still revealing its secrets, and that realization has changed how historians think about the past. History is not merely something preserved in books. Sometimes it is buried directly beneath our feet. Yet among all these hidden cities and forgotten neighborhoods, another discovery challenged historians in a different way. For generations, many scholars believed Roman women had little influence outside the home. Then archaeology uncovered evidence that told a far more complicated story, a story of business owners, property managers, religious leaders, and women whose power extended far beyond what historians once imagined. Chapter 8. The Roman women who were far more powerful than historians believed. What if one of the biggest mistakes historians made about ancient Rome was ignoring half the population? For centuries, history books focused almost entirely on emperors, generals, senators, and soldiers. Most of them were men. As a result, many people came to believe that Roman women had little influence over society. They were often portrayed as passive figures who remained in the background while men controlled the empire. But then archaeologists started uncovering evidence that told a very different story. A story hidden in tombs, a story preserved in business records, a story written on stone inscriptions. And with every new discovery, historians realized something surprising. Roman women may have had far more power, influence, and independence than anyone had imagined. Imagine walking through a prosperous Roman city. The streets are crowded with merchants, craftsmen, and travelers. Shops line the roads. Business deals take place in public squares. At first glance, it seems like a world dominated by men. That was certainly the impression left by many ancient writers. Most surviving Roman texts were written by elite men, and naturally, they focused on people like themselves. But archaeology offered another perspective. Unlike written history, archaeological evidence does not choose whose stories to tell. It simply preserves what survives. And what survived began to challenge old assumptions. One of the most important discoveries came from inscriptions. Across the Roman Empire, archaeologists uncovered thousands of carved stones mentioning women. These inscriptions appeared on tombs, monuments, buildings, and public dedications. Many described women who owned property, funded construction projects, or managed significant wealth. Historians were surprised by how often women appeared in economic life. While Roman law imposed certain restrictions, many women could inherit money and property. Some inherited enormous fortunes. Others built successful businesses. The evidence showed that wealth often translated into influence. One remarkable discovery involved women who financed public works. In several cities, inscriptions recorded women paying for temples, bathhouses, fountains, and other community projects. These donations earned public recognition and respect. Their names were displayed for everyone to see. In a world where public reputation mattered greatly, this was significant. Far from being invisible, some women played highly visible roles in their communities. Archaeologists also uncovered evidence of female business owners. Records suggest that women worked as merchants, landowners, textile producers, and managers of various enterprises. In some cases, they controlled substantial commercial operations. The discoveries revealed an economic reality much more complex than historians once believed. Then there were the tombs. Roman tombs often provide valuable clues about how people viewed themselves. Many women's tombs celebrated achievements beyond marriage and motherhood. Some highlighted business success. Others emphasized religious leadership or social influence. The messages suggested that Roman society recognized a wider range of female accomplishments than many historians had assumed. One particularly fascinating area of research involves religion. Women played important roles in many religious activities throughout the empire. Certain priestesses held prestigious positions and enjoyed considerable status. Perhaps the most famous were the Vestal Virgins, guardians of Rome's sacred fire. These women occupied one of the most respected positions in Roman society. They possessed privileges unavailable to most other citizens. Their influence extended into politics, religion, and public life. The more archaeologists learned, the more difficult it became to maintain older stereotypes. That does not mean Roman society was equal by modern standards. It certainly was not. Men generally held the highest political offices and military commands. Legal and social restrictions existed. Yet the evidence showed that reality was far more nuanced than historians had once believed. Women exercised power in ways that were sometimes subtle but often highly effective. Through wealth, through religion, through family connections, through business, and through community leadership. Perhaps the most important lesson is that history often depends on whose voices survive. For centuries, scholars relied heavily on texts written by elite men. When archaeology added new sources of evidence, the picture changed dramatically. Suddenly, women who had been overlooked for generations stepped back into the story, and they brought with them a richer, more complete understanding of Roman society. But while these discoveries reshaped our understanding of life on land, another astonishing revelation was waiting beneath the sea. Because deep in the Mediterranean, archaeologists began finding shipwrecks filled with clues about a trading network so vast that it connected 3 continents. And what those shipwrecks revealed would prove that the Roman economy was far larger and more sophisticated than historians had ever imagined. Chapter 9. The shipwrecks that revealed Rome's hidden global economy. Imagine sailing across the Mediterranean Sea nearly 2,000 years ago. Your ship is loaded with valuable cargo, amphorae filled with wine, barrels of olive oil, fine glassware, marble from distant quarries, spices and luxury goods from lands you may never even visit. The journey is long. Storms are unpredictable. Pirates still roam certain waters. Then disaster strikes. A violent storm appears without warning. Waves crash against the ship. The crew struggles to stay afloat, and within minutes, the vessel disappears beneath the sea. For the people aboard, the story ends there. But for historians, it is only beginning. Because centuries later, archaeologists would discover thousands of Roman shipwrecks resting on the seafloor. And those shipwrecks would reveal something astonishing. Ancient Rome's economy was far larger, more connected, and more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. For a long time, historians knew that Rome was a major trading power. Ancient writers frequently mentioned merchants, ports, and commercial activity. But written records only told part of the story. The real surprise came when underwater archaeology began uncovering shipwrecks throughout the Mediterranean. Each wreck functioned like a time capsule. Unlike cities that changed over centuries, a shipwreck preserved a single moment in time. Everything aboard often remained exactly where it had been when the ship sank. Its cargo, its equipment, sometimes even personal belongings. As divers and archaeologists explored these underwater sites, a remarkable pattern emerged. Roman trade was operating on a scale few historians had expected. One shipwreck might contain wine produced in Spain. Another carried marble from Greece. A third transported goods originating in North Africa. Many vessels were traveling enormous distances. Products moved across thousands of kilometers with surprising regularity. The Roman world was far more interconnected than earlier scholars believed. Imagine a merchant living in Britain. Through Roman trade networks, he could potentially purchase olive oil from modern-day Tunisia, wine from Italy, glass from Syria, and luxury items originating even farther east. The empire created one of the largest commercial systems the ancient world had ever seen. The evidence was everywhere. Archaeologists recovered countless amphorae, large clay containers used to transport liquids and food products. These containers often carried stamps identifying their place of origin. By mapping where amphorae were found, researchers could reconstruct ancient trade routes. The results were extraordinary. Goods flowed continuously between distant regions of the empire. Some products became so widespread that they appeared almost everywhere. Olive oil from southern Spain, for example, reached markets across Europe. Roman consumers had access to an impressive variety of imported goods. Another surprising discovery involved the size of certain cargo vessels. For years, historians underestimated how much material Roman ships could transport. Then shipwreck excavations revealed enormous merchant vessels capable of carrying hundreds of tons of cargo. These ships were the giant cargo freighters of their age. They helped sustain cities with populations that depended heavily on imported food and materials. Rome itself offered perhaps the greatest example. At its peak, the city may have housed over 1 million people. Feeding such a population required an immense logistical operation. Grain shipments arrived from Egypt and North Africa. Food, fuel, building materials, and luxury goods flowed into the city from across the empire. Without large-scale maritime trade, Rome simply could not have functioned. The shipwrecks also revealed something else. The Roman economy was surprisingly resilient. Trade routes adapted to changing circumstances. Merchants sought new opportunities. Markets connected distant communities. In many ways, the Roman world resembled an ancient version of globalization. People living thousands of kilometers apart were economically linked through shared networks of commerce. This realization transformed historians' understanding of the empire. Rome was not merely a military superpower. It was also an economic powerhouse. A vast commercial system connected by roads, rivers, ports, and sea lanes. And thanks to the shipwrecks resting silently beneath the Mediterranean, we now understand that system better than ever before. Yet among all the products transported across those trade networks, one stood out as especially remarkable. It was beautiful. It was fragile. It was incredibly difficult to produce. And for centuries, historians underestimated just how advanced Roman craftsmen truly were, because the next discovery would reveal the surprising secrets hidden inside something as ordinary as a piece of glass.